Hi folks, Scott Powell here with another History of Tomorrow and 14 Points Daily. It's the day after the election. So, what do I think the consequences of what has occurred are? Now here I'm speaking as a historian, so I'm not trying to analyze the events from a normative perspective. I'm simply trying to assess what are the historical consequences. And so what I would say is that if you've read The History of Tomorrow, you'll know that, in my view, the American social contract was in an indeterminate state ever since Barack Obama was president. I refer to this somewhat tongue-in-cheek as the Wobble, because you would never have imagined that Barack Obama could have been succeeded by Donald Trump. And that occurred in a rather strange manner. Of course, Donald Trump needed the Electoral College in order to defeat Hillary Clinton. And then the very strange thing happened, which was that Donald Trump was ousted in dramatic fashion by Joe Biden. Very dubious fashion, I must say. I have no knowledge, of course, of how it is possible that Joe Biden would get 81 million votes when the much more charismatic Barack Obama got nowhere near that. And now Kamala Harris has so many fewer votes. That is all certainly raises eyebrows. But to me, as a historian, in my view, we were in what I refer to as a wobble. And there have been at least two of these in American history. The first wobble was the one that gave rise to the American Revolution. That was an instability in the social contract, in the colonial social contract, as a result of the Stamp Act and other measures, which led to, of course, the rejection of the colonial social contract by the Founding Fathers. And then the second important wobble in the social contract was the lead up to the Civil War, in which there was this massive problem of how to accommodate the states with their different cultures, and of course the issue of slavery and the adjunct issue of the tariff in the relationship between the North and the South. So we've been in a wobble as well, with Obama succeeded by Trump, succeeded by Biden, and now back to Trump. And so what do I think the meaning of that is? Actually, in my view, I think this means that the wobble is over. I think there were two ways the wobble could end. One of them was that Kamala Harris could win an overwhelming mandate. And the other is that Donald Trump could win an overwhelming mandate. And it is the latter that happened, of course. So had Kamala Harris won, then America would have essentially transformed into a socialist society. And that would have been the end of what I call the now trans process of socialization. But now that Donald Trump has won, and won so convincingly and very significantly, Donald Trump has won with the popular vote, not merely requiring the technicalities involving the Electoral College in order to defeat the opponent, but rather has convincingly won the popular vote. And the Republican Party, that's dominated by the MAGA branch, has, of course, also won the Senate and presumably will win the House as well. That's quite an overwhelming mandate. And what that means is that we are no longer in that transitional period that began essentially when the Soviet Union fell, and in which the United States was trying to define a new social contract, one that was not pinned on anti-communism and constrained by anti-communism, but one which was democratic, but democratic socialist. And so now what we are facing is a new period in American politics, and probably a new party system, in the sense that the Democrats used to be the party of free speech, and the Democrats used to be, plainly speaking, kind of the party of peace, if you will, even though there were, of course, exceptions. And of course, the Democrats have become the party of censorship and the party of war. And the Republicans have kind of taken up the other side. And so we're seeing an inversion, if you will, in the party system. And I think it means that the Republicans now are going to be in control of the social agenda for a while, and that this will be a defining feature of the next period that we live through in the social contract. And what I also think it means is that the Democratic Party is literally going to have to reinvent itself. In other words, Americans have said they don't want socialism. And the Democrats were pushing in that direction constantly throughout what I call the now trans period, which leads to this wobble. And Obama, of course, was a major advocate of that push. And Biden was as well, wow, for a lot of reasons. And Harris was outright and explicitly socialist in many of her views. And so instead, we're going to see the Democrats have to figure out what is the new version of the Democratic Party that they want. We already have a new version of the Republican Party. It's the MAGA Party. That's it. That's its identity. That will dominate the foreseeable future. And that is transformative. And the fact that the Democratic Party has to also now reinvent itself in relation to MAGA is also obviously transformative, because we have a two-party system. And now the Republicans have essentially the edge. They have the mandate, and they're going to be defining the terms of reference, and the Democrats are going to be responding. I think that's quite fascinating because, in my view, ever since the Great Depression, the Democrats have been the party defining the trajectory of the social contract, and the Republicans have been essentially fighting a rear guard action. It was, of course, the Republicans that became the conservatives in response to the New Deal, and the conservatives that were anti-communist and so on. But they were always very pragmatic and really unprincipled. And now what we have is a Republican-dominated agenda with the Democrats essentially forming the opposition within the social contract. So we'll have to wait and see what decision is made in terms of how will they respond. Will they go further left, or will they essentially lose their identity, or perhaps will they have to re-embrace the what I refer to as the Americanistic variant of the Democratic Party? Essentially the JFK and MLK versions. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, because the Republicans have essentially taken over that mandate with RFK Jr. within the Republican administration to come. So I'm really going to be interested to see what it is that the Democrats will adopt as a new identity for their party. So basically, that's kind of where I'm at here, just in a quick response to the election. I think overall it was a good result in terms of the stability of the social system. If there had been a really tight election either way, I think we would have seen a marked instability in the social system. But because the mandate was overwhelming, we're not going to have to worry too much about chaos, if you will, or anarchy in the streets and so on. Except, of course, when Donald Trump's anti-immigration policies come into play, then we're going to see a lot of issues, and that will probably become a defining feature of the new social contract as well. So there you go. Those are my initial thoughts for now, and I'll get back to you if I think of anything else.